The colony on Kepler 7X had reached a turning point. With the successful creation of their own wormhole generator, the settlers no longer relied solely on Earth for survival. The breakthrough gave them independence and a renewed sense of purpose. It was as if the colony had taken its first real step toward becoming a self-sustaining world, not just an outpost clinging to life. Emma Carter stood near the generator, her hands resting on the control panel. The machine hummed softly, its lights blinking in a steady rhythm. She still couldn't believe they had done it. Months of hard work, late nights, and countless setbacks had finally paid off. The wormhole it created was stable, allowing regular shipments of supplies and communication with Earth. But more importantly, it proved that humanity could adapt and thrive even in the most challenging environments. Daniel Harper approached her, carrying a clipboard. "Everything looks good," he said, glancing at the readings. "The system is holding steady," Emma nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing portal. "It's amazing, isn't it? We built this ourselves." Daniel smiled. "We didn't do it alone. Everyone here played a part." "That's true," Emma admitted. "But this is different. This isn't just fixing what's broken, it's creating something new, something that changes everything." Daniel leaned against the railing, looking out at the settlement. "Do you think other colonies will try to build their own generators?" "Definitely," Emma replied. "If we can do it, so can they. Imagine what that means. Colonies all over the galaxy, connected by wormholes. No one would ever feel abandoned again." The thought filled her with hope. For years, the settlers on Kepler 7X had felt forgotten, left to fend for themselves in a hostile environment. Now, they were pioneers, showing others what was possible. Their success inspired not only distant colonies, but also people back on Earth. News of their achievement spread quickly, sparking conversations about humanity's future among the stars. As the days passed, life on Kepler 7X continued to improve. The settlers expanded their operations, building new facilities to support their growing population. They constructed additional greenhouses, increasing food production, and set up workshops to repair and maintain equipment. The community worked together, sharing skills and resources to ensure everyone had what they needed. Rachel Monroe and Liam Grant stayed in touch through the wormhole, offering advice and encouragement. Though they were back on Earth, their presence was still felt in the colony. Rachel often sent messages of support, reminding the settlers of how far they had come. Liam shared updates on advancements in wormhole technology, eager to see how the colony's generator could be improved. Emma spent much of her time refining the generator, determined to make it even more efficient. She collaborated with Daniel and other engineers, running tests and analyzing data. Each improvement brought them closer to making the wormhole a permanent fixture in their lives. "We're not just surviving anymore," she told Daniel one evening. "We're building a legacy." Daniel nodded. "A legacy of resilience, of proving that we can overcome anything." Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. The settlers celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. When the generator successfully transported its first shipment of medical supplies, cheers erupted across the colony. When a team used the wormhole to send a message to a nearby colony, the excitement was palpable. Each success reinforced the idea that they were part of something bigger than themselves. One day, a group of settlers gathered around Emma and Daniel, eager to hear about their plans for the future. "What's next?" someone asked. Emma smiled. "Next, we keep pushing forward. We've stabilized the wormhole, but there's still so much we can do. We can explore this planet, learn more about its resources, and find ways to use them. Maybe we'll discover something that will help other colonies too." "And what about Earth?" another settler asked. "Will we always stay connected?" "Yes," Emma replied firmly. "The wormhole doesn't mean we're leaving Earth behind. It means we're bringing Earth closer. We're part of humanity's story, no matter where we are." Her words resonated with everyone. The colony wasn't just a distant outpost anymore, it was a vital piece of humanity's expansion into the stars. The settlers took pride in their role, knowing they were contributing to something greater than themselves. As the weeks turned into months, the colony continued to grow. New settlers arrived from Earth, drawn by the promise of opportunity and adventure. They brought fresh ideas and energy, further enriching the community. Families expanded, children played in the streets, and laughter filled the air. The once barren landscape was slowly transforming into a vibrant home. Emma and Daniel remained at the heart of it all, guiding the colony with wisdom and determination. They encouraged creativity and innovation, fostering an environment where everyone felt empowered to contribute. Whether it was designing new tools, experimenting with crops, or exploring uncharted areas of the planet, the settlers embraced every challenge with enthusiasm. One evening, as the twin suns set in a blaze of orange and red, Emma climbed to the observation tower. Below her, the colony glowed softly, lit by lanterns and solar-powered lights. The wind carried the sound of music and laughter, a stark contrast to the silence that had once defined this place. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing they had achieved the impossible. Daniel joined her a short while later, carrying 2 cups of tea. He handed one to Emma and leaned against the railing. "Hard to believe how far we've come," he said. "It is," Emma agreed. "Sometimes I look around and wonder if it's all real." Daniel chuckled. "It's real, all right. And it's because of you. You never gave up, even when things seemed hopeless." Emma shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. None of us did. This is what happens when people come together and refuse to quit." They stood in silence for a moment, gazing at the stars. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the wormhole waited, a testament to humanity's determination to reach across the vastness of space. It represented not just a technological breakthrough, but a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter how far apart people might be, they could always find a way to connect. Far away on Earth, Rachel and Liam watched the progress of the colony with pride. They knew the journey was far from over, but they also knew that humanity's potential was limitless. Together they had shattered the barriers of distance and despair, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. On Kepler 7X, the settlers faced the future with confidence. Challenges would undoubtedly arise, but they were ready. Together, they had transformed a struggling outpost into a thriving community, proving that resilience and cooperation could overcome even the harshest conditions. As Emma descended from the tower, she thought about the road ahead. It wouldn't always be easy, but she was prepared. They had already achieved the impossible. What else could they accomplish? For the settlers on Kepler 7X, the sky was no longer a limit. It was a gateway. Through the wormhole, they had broken free of isolation and despair, forging a new path for humanity. And as they looked to the stars, they saw not just endless space, but endless possibilities. Their story was proof that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine brightly, lighting the way to a better future. Months had passed since the arrival of the eclipse, and life on Kepler 7X was unrecognizable from what it had been. The colony thrived in ways no one thought possible. Crops grew abundantly in the improved greenhouse, water flowed steadily through the new irrigation system, and the air filtration units hummed with reliability. The settlers no longer lived in constant fear of running out of supplies or being cut off from help. For the first time in years, they felt secure. Emma Carter walked through the settlement, marveling at how much had changed. The once dusty paths were now lined with small gardens, planted by settlers eager to beautify their home. Children played freely, their laughter echoing through the domes. Even the storms that had once devastated the colony seemed less frequent, as if the planet itself had calmed down. Emma stopped near the observation tower and looked around, her heart swelling with pride. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was prosperity. Daniel Harper joined her a moment later, carrying a clipboard. He had been overseeing the expansion of the greenhouse, preparing for the next harvest. "Things are really coming together," he said, glancing at the bustling activity around them. "They are," Emma agreed. "Hard to believe this is the same place we almost gave up on." Daniel nodded. "It's because of everyone pulling together. We couldn't have done it without Rachel and Liam and the rest of the crew." Emma smiled. "True, but don't sell yourself short. You've done more than anyone to keep this place alive." Daniel chuckled softly. "I just planted some seeds. You're the one who kept the machines running." They stood quietly for a moment, watching the settlers go about their tasks. It was clear that the colony was no longer just a desperate attempt to survive. It was becoming a real community. People shared meals, celebrated milestones, and worked side by side with a sense of purpose. The arrival of additional settlers from Earth had brought fresh energy and ideas, further strengthening the bonds between everyone. Inside the workshop, Liam Grant tinkered with a piece of equipment salvaged from the eclipse. His mind raced with possibilities. Since Emma had first suggested building their own wormhole generator, he had been obsessed with the idea. Though the project was still in its early stages, progress was steady. With each test, they learned something new about stabilizing the technology. Rachel Monroe entered the workshop carrying a stack of papers. She set them down on a nearby table and leaned against the wall. "How's it going?" she asked, nodding toward the device Liam was working on. "Slowly but surely," Liam replied. "We're making headway, but there's still a lot to figure out." Rachel crossed her arms. "You know, back on Earth, people are amazed at what you've accomplished here. If you can build a stable generator, it could change everything, not just for Kepler 7X, but for all the colonies." Liam grinned. "That's the dream, right? Independence." Rachel smiled faintly. "Exactly. Just be careful. I don't want anything happening to you or the colony." "I will," Liam promised. "We're taking every precaution." The days passed. The settlers continued to work on improving their home. New buildings went up, powered by solar panels that gleamed in the light of the twin suns. Communication with Earth became routine, allowing settlers to stay connected with loved ones and share updates about their progress. The sense of isolation that had once defined life on Kepler 7X was fading, replaced by a feeling of belonging to both the colony and humanity as a whole. Emma spent most of her time refining the designs for the wormhole generator. She collaborated closely with Liam, testing theories and running simulations. Though setbacks occurred, they pushed forward, driven by the belief that success was within reach. Daniel supported their efforts by ensuring the colony's systems remained operational, freeing Emma to focus on the ambitious project. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, the settlers gathered for a celebration. Tables were set up outside, laden with food grown in the greenhouse. Lanterns hung from poles, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Music played softly in the background, and laughter filled the air. It was a rare moment of pure joy, a reminder of how far they had come. Rachel stood at the edge of the crowd, watching silently. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that the mission had succeeded beyond her expectations. These settlers weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They had proven that humanity could adapt and overcome even the harshest conditions. Emma approached her, holding 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Rachel and gestured toward the cheerful scene. "This is what we've been working for," she said. "A future where everyone has a chance to live well." Rachel took a sip of tea, her eyes glistening. "You did it, Emma. All of you. I'm just glad I got to be part of it." Emma shook her head. "You gave us hope when we needed it most. Without you, none of this would have been possible." For a long time, they stood together, watching the celebration unfold. The bond between the settlers and the crew of the Eclipse had grown into something profound. They weren't just allies, they were family, united by shared struggles and triumphs. The next morning, Rachel and Liam prepared to leave. Their mission was complete, and it was time to return to Earth. The settlers gathered to see them off, expressing their gratitude with hugs and heartfelt words. Emma and Daniel stood at the front of the group trying to mask their emotions. "You'll come back, won't you?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Rachel smiled warmly. "Of course. And until then, remember, you're not alone. The wormhole connects us, no matter how far apart we are." Liam stepped forward and hugged Emma tightly. "Keep pushing forward with the generator. I know you'll make it work." "We will," Emma promised. "And when we do, we'll send word immediately." As the Eclipse lifted off, the settlers waved until it disappeared into the sky. Though they were sad to see their friends go, they felt a renewed sense of determination. The colony was strong now, capable of facing whatever challenges lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, Emma and the settlers poured their energy into completing the wormhole generator. Progress was slow, but every small victory brought them closer to independence. They tested the device repeatedly, learning from each trial and adjusting their approach. Finally, after months of effort, they achieved a breakthrough. The generator created a stable wormhole connecting Kepler 7X directly to Earth. News of their success spread quickly, inspiring other colonies to pursue similar projects. Humanity's reach across the stars expanded, fueled by the courage and ingenuity of those who refused to give up. For the settlers on Kepler 7X, the achievement marked the beginning of a new era, an era defined not by struggle, but by possibility. Emma climbed to the observation tower one last time, gazing at the stars. The sky above seemed wider now, filled with endless opportunities. Humanity had broken through the boundaries of space, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine brightly. As she turned to leave, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced despair and emerged victorious. Whatever the future held, they were ready. Far away, on Earth, Rachel and Liam watched the news of the colony's success with pride. They knew that the journey was far from over, but they also knew that humanity's potential was limitless. Together, they had shattered the barriers of distance and despair, paving the way for a brighter tomorrow. On Kepler 7X, the settlers celebrated their achievements, looking forward to the challenges and wonders that awaited them. They had transformed a barren world into a thriving home, proving that resilience, unity, and determination could overcome even the greatest odds. As the twin suns rose over the horizon, casting light on the red landscape, the colony stood as a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a beacon of hope shining brightly among the stars. The colony on Kepler 7X was changing. Slowly but surely, the settlers were rebuilding their lives with the help of Rachel Monroe, Liam Grant, and the crew of the Eclipse. The air filtration system worked better than ever. The greenhouse produced enough food to feed everyone, and the storms that once terrified them seemed less destructive now that the buildings were reinforced. But while the physical challenges were being addressed, deeper issues remained. Trust was one of those issues. For years, the settlers had felt abandoned by Earth, left to fend for themselves in a hostile environment. Now, suddenly, they were being told that humanity cared about them again. It was hard to believe. Some settlers welcomed the newcomers warmly, grateful for the supplies and expertise they brought. Others remained cautious, unsure if this newfound support would last. Rachel noticed the divide and made it her mission to bridge the gap. She spent hours talking to people, listening to their stories and concerns. She didn't shy away from difficult questions, even when the answers weren't easy. "I can't promise you that everything will be perfect," she told a group of settlers during one meeting. "But I can promise you that we're not going anywhere. Not until you're safe." Her honesty earned her respect, though not everyone was convinced right away. Emma Carter saw how hard Rachel was trying and decided to help. She organized informal gatherings where settlers could share meals with the crew of the Eclipse. First, these events were awkward, with long silences and forced conversations. But over time, barriers began to break down. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Emma sat with Daniel Harper and a few others near the greenhouse. Rachel and Liam joined them, bringing cups of tea brewed from herbs grown right, there on Kepler 7X. The mood was relaxed, almost celebratory. Someone started telling a story about life back on Earth, and soon everyone was laughing and sharing memories. Daniel leaned back, watching the interaction. He turned to Emma and whispered, "This feels different. Like, real." Emma nodded. "It's because we're working together now. We're not just surviving. We're building something." That sense of collaboration spread throughout the colony. People who had once kept to themselves began volunteering for tasks outside their usual roles. A mechanic helped plant crops, while a farmer assisted with repairing machines. Even the children got involved, carrying tools or fetching water whenever they were needed. The spirit of unity grew stronger every day, but progress wasn't without its setbacks. During one supply run through the wormhole, the Eclipse encountered another bout of turbulence. This time, the damage was worse, forcing the crew to delay their return to Earth for repairs. The settlers worried that the wormhole might collapse entirely, cutting them off again. Emma did her best to reassure everyone, reminding them of how far they'd come. "We're stronger now," she said during a community meeting. "Even if the wormhole closes, we have what it takes to keep going." Her words calmed some fears, but others lingered. Liam worked tirelessly to analyze the instability, hoping to find a solution. "There's still so much we don't understand about the wormhole," he admitted to Emma one afternoon. "Every trip teaches us something new, but it's like solving a puzzle with missing pieces." Emma placed a hand on his shoulder. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Liam smiled faintly. "Thanks for believing in me." As weeks turned into months, the colony continued to thrive. New crops flourished in the greenhouse, providing fresh vegetables and fruits that hadn't been seen in years. Solar panels powered lights and equipment, making the settlement feel more alive than ever. Communication with Earth improved, allowing settlers to send messages to loved ones they hadn't heard from in ages. Each message brought tears of joy and sometimes sorrow, but also renewed hope. Rachel and Liam became fixtures in the colony, no longer seen as outsiders. They joined in daily activities, learning the rhythms of life on Kepler 7X. Rachel marveled at how resourceful the settlers were, finding creative solutions to problems with limited materials. Liam bonded with the children, teaching them simple science experiments using items found around the settlement. His enthusiasm was contagious, sparking curiosity in young minds. Emma and Daniel played key roles in keeping things running smoothly. Emma focused on maintaining the colony's systems, ensuring nothing broke down again. Her partnership with Liam led to innovative fixes that surprised even the scientists back on Earth. Daniel, meanwhile, expanded the greenhouse, experimenting with new crops and irrigation methods. His success inspired others to think creatively about farming. Despite all the progress, Emma couldn't shake the idea of creating their own wormhole generator. She broached the subject with Rachel one evening as they walked along the edge of the settlement. "What if we built our own version?" she asked. "It wouldn't be easy, but it could give us independence." Rachel stopped walking and looked at her. "It's a bold idea. Do you really think it's possible?" "I don't know," Emma admitted. "But isn't that what got us this far? Trying things that seem impossible?" Rachel considered her words. "If anyone can make it work, it's you. Just promise me you won't rush into it." "Safety has to come first." Emma agreed, knowing the risks involved. Still, the seed of possibility had been planted. She began sketching designs in her spare time, consulting with Liam and other engineers. Though the project was far from completion, it gave the settlers something else to dream about, a future where they weren't dependent on anyone else. As the colony prepared for its next big milestone, the arrival of additional settlers from Earth, everyone pitched in to expand living quarters and storage facilities. News of the rescue mission had inspired others to volunteer for life on Kepler 7X, eager to contribute to humanity's expansion into the stars. The original settlers welcomed the newcomers warmly, sharing their knowledge and experiences. On the day the new arrivals landed, cheers erupted across the settlement. Families reunited, old friendships rekindled, and new bonds formed. The sight of so many people working together filled Emma with pride. They had transformed a struggling outpost into a thriving community, proving that resilience and cooperation could overcome even the harshest conditions. That night, as the twin suns set in a blaze of orange and red, Emma climbed to the observation tower. Below her, the colony glowed softly, lit by lanterns and solar-powered lights. The wind carried the sound of laughter and music, a stark contrast to the silence that had once defined this place. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. Rachel joined her a short while later, carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Emma and leaned against the railing. "Hard to believe how far we've come," she said. Emma took a sip, savoring the warmth. "It's not just about survival anymore, is it? It's about building something worth fighting for." Rachel smiled. "Exactly. And you've done an incredible job leading the way." Emma shook her head. "Not just me. Everyone here played a part. That's what makes it special." They stood in silence for a moment, gazing at the stars. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the wormhole waited, a testament to humanity's determination to reach across the vastness of space. It represented not just a technological breakthrough, but a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter how far apart people might be, they could always find a way to connect. Far away on Earth, scientists celebrated each successful trip through the wormhole. Their work wasn't done, but they had proven that humanity could push past its limits. For the settlers on Kepler 7X, the journey was far from over. Yet, they faced the future with confidence, knowing they had already achieved the impossible. Emma descended from the tower. She thought about the road ahead. Challenges would undoubtedly arise, but she was ready. Together, they had broken through despair and rebuilt their world. Now, they were poised to take the next step, not just as survivors, but as pioneers shaping a new chapter in human history. The arrival of the eclipse brought a wave of emotions to the settlers on Kepler 7X. For days, the colony buzzed with activity as everyone worked together to unload supplies and set up temporary shelters for the crew. Emma Carter and Daniel Harper stayed close to Rachel Monroe and Liam Grant, eager to learn everything they could about the rescue mission and what it meant for their future. Rachel explained that the wormhole technology was still experimental. While it had worked this time, there was no guarantee it would remain stable during future trips. The priority now was to stabilize the colony's infrastructure so they could survive until Earth could send more help or find a way to make regular travel through the wormhole possible. Emma listened carefully, her mind racing with ideas. She knew how fragile the colony's systems were, and she saw an opportunity to use the new technology to fix them. "If we can get parts from Earth," she said, "we might be able to repair the air filtration system and the water purifiers. That alone would make a huge difference." Rachel nodded. "We'll do our best to bring what you need, but remember, every trip through the wormhole is risky. We have to prioritize." Daniel chimed in, his voice steady but hopeful. "What? About farming? If we had better tools and seeds, we could grow more food. Right now, we're barely scraping by." Liam smiled. That's something we can definitely arrange. Back on Earth, we've developed crops that thrive in tough conditions. They might work here too. As the days passed, the settlers and the crew grew closer. Rachel and Liam spent hours walking through the colony, inspecting equipment and talking to people. They learned about the challenges the settlers faced, the failing machines, the unpredictable storms, and the constant fear of running out of resources. It was clear that survival here required not just strength, but also ingenuity. Emma took charge of organizing the repairs. With Liam's help, she began dismantling broken machines to salvage usable parts. Together, they worked long hours in the workshop, piecing together solutions from scraps. Daniel focused on improving the greenhouse, clearing away debris, and preparing the soil for new crops. He even helped design a simple irrigation system using materials from the eclipse. Despite the progress, tensions lingered. Some settlers were wary of the newcomers, unsure if they could trust them after years of being abandoned. Others worried that the wormhole might collapse, cutting off their lifeline forever. Rachel understood their fears and made an effort to address them. One evening, she called a meeting in the main dome. The settlers gathered around, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Rachel stood at the front, speaking slowly and clearly. "I know many of you feel like Earth forgot about you," she began, "and I won't deny that mistakes were made. But I promise you, we're here now, and we're committed to helping you rebuild." She went on to explain the next steps: stabilizing the colony's systems, establishing a supply line through the wormhole, and exploring ways to make the settlement self-sufficient. Her words were met with cautious optimism. Slowly, the settlers began to open up, sharing their thoughts and concerns. After the meeting, Emma approached Rachel. "You did well," she said. "People needed to hear that." Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. "It's not enough to just say the right things. We have to deliver." "You will," Emma replied firmly, "and we'll help however we can." With renewed determination, the colony threw itself into the work of rebuilding. Emma and Liam collaborated on repairing the air filtration system, which was critical for keeping the atmosphere breathable. They scavenged parts from the old rover and used components brought by the eclipse. After several failed attempts, they finally managed to get the system running smoothly again. The change was immediate. Everyone noticed the air felt fresher, cleaner. Meanwhile, Daniel worked tirelessly in the greenhouse. Seeds sent from Earth arrived via the second wormhole trip, along with tools designed for harsh environments. Under Daniel's care, the new crops began to sprout, their green leaves a welcome contrast to the red dust outside. The settlers cheered when the first harvest came in, small though it was. It was proof that life could flourish here, even in such an unforgiving place. As the weeks went by, the colony started to transform. Buildings were reinforced to withstand the storms, and new solar panels were installed to generate power. Communication equipment was repaired, allowing limited contact with Earth. For the first time in years, the settlers felt a sense of control over their lives. But challenges remained. The wormhole was still unstable, and each trip carried risks. During one journey, the Eclipse encountered turbulence that damaged part of its hull. Repairs delayed the next shipment, leaving the settlers anxious and frustrated. Rachel assured them that the team back on Earth was working on improvements, but the incident reminded everyone how precarious their situation still was. Emma found herself spending more time with Liam, discussing ways to adapt the colony's technology to reduce reliance on Earth. "What if we built our own version of the wormhole generator?" she asked one day while they worked in the workshop. Liam looked skeptical. "It's incredibly complex. Even the smallest error could cause a disaster." "I know," Emma admitted. "But think about it. If we could create a stable connection ourselves, we wouldn't need to wait for Earth to send help." Liam considered her idea. "It's worth looking into," he said finally. "But it'll take time and a lot of resources." Despite the obstacles, Emma couldn't shake the thought. She knew it was ambitious, maybe even impossible, but she also knew that innovation often came from daring to try the unthinkable. While Emma dreamed of independence, Daniel focused on fostering unity within the colony. He organized community gatherings, encouraging people to share stories and skills. These events brought a sense of camaraderie that had been missing for years. Even the children, who had grown up knowing only hardship, began to laugh and play again. Rachel noticed the changes, too. She marveled at how resilient the settlers were, despite everything they had endured. "You've built something amazing here," she told Emma one evening as they watched the twin suns set. "Even before we arrived, you never gave up." Emma smiled faintly. "We didn't have a choice. Giving up meant dying." Rachel nodded. "Still, it's inspiring. You remind me why this mission matters." As the days turned into weeks, the bond between the settlers and the crew deepened. Rachel and Liam weren't just visitors anymore. They were part of the colony, working alongside everyone else to ensure its survival. Their presence gave the settlers hope, not just for immediate relief, but for a brighter future. One night, as Emma stood atop the observation tower, she gazed at the stars. The sky seemed less vast now, less intimidating. The knowledge that humanity had broken through the boundaries of space filled her with awe. She thought about the wormhole, that shimmering tunnel connecting two distant worlds, and wondered what other possibilities lay beyond it. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream, not just of survival, but of prosperity. What if Kepler 7X became more than a struggling outpost? What if it became a thriving community, a testament to human perseverance and ingenuity? When she climbed down from the tower, Emma found Daniel waiting for her. He held out a cup of tea, the steam rising in soft curls. "Thinking big thoughts?" he asked with a grin. "Maybe," she replied, taking the cup. "Just imagining what's possible." Daniel nodded. "Me too. Feels good, doesn't it?" "It does," Emma agreed. "For the first time in a long time, I think we're going to be okay." They sat together in silence, sipping their tea and watching the stars. The wind howled softly in the distance, a reminder of the planet's harshness, but it no longer felt like a threat. Instead, it seemed like a challenge, one they were ready to face together. Far away on Earth, scientists continued refining the wormhole technology. Each success brought them closer to making regular travel safe and reliable. For the settlers, on Kepler 7X, help had arrived, not a moment too soon. But more importantly, they had rediscovered their strength, their resilience, and their ability to dream, and that perhaps was the greatest gift of all. Back on Earth, life was very different from the struggles faced by the settlers on Kepler 7X. The planet was crowded, noisy, and full of challenges, but it was also a place where humanity's brightest minds worked tirelessly to solve problems that seemed impossible. In a sprawling research facility called New Dawn, scientists were racing against time to develop a technology that could change everything. Rachel Monroe was one of those scientists. She was in her late 30s with sharp green eyes and a determined expression that rarely left her face. Rachel had spent most of her adult life studying physics, poring over equations and theories that baffled even the smartest people. But this project, Project Aurora, was different. It wasn't just about advancing science. It was about saving lives. Years earlier, Rachel had been part of the team that designed the ships used to colonize distant planets like Kepler 7X. When the colonies were abandoned due to budget cuts and political disagreements, she felt a deep sense of guilt. Every night, she thought about the people still out there, struggling to survive without support. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was her responsibility to bring them home, or at least give them a fighting chance. Her assistant, Liam Grant, was much younger than Rachel. He was only 26, with messy brown hair and a habit of talking too fast when he got excited. Despite his youth, Liam was brilliant. He had a knack for understanding complex ideas quickly and finding creative solutions to problems. Together, Rachel and Liam formed the backbone of Project Aurora. The goal of the project was simple in theory, but incredibly difficult in practice. Create a stable wormhole that could transport ships across vast distances instantly. A wormhole was like a tunnel through space, connecting two points that would normally take years or even centuries to travel between. If they succeeded, it would mean humanity could reach its farthest colonies in moments, not lifetimes. For years, the team had faced failure after failure. Wormholes were notoriously unstable, collapsing almost as soon as they formed. Some experiments caused small explosions, while others resulted in bizarre distortions of space and time. There were days when it felt like they were chasing a dream that could never come true. But Rachel refused to give up. She reminded herself and everyone else that the lives of countless colonists depended on their success. One morning, Rachel arrived at the lab early, as usual. She carried a cup of coffee in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. Liam was already there, hunched over a computer screen, typing furiously. His face lit up when he saw her. "Rachel, you won't believe this," he exclaimed, waving her over. "I think I found something." Rachel set her coffee down and leaned closer to the screen. On it was a series of calculations and graphs showing energy patterns during their latest test run. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual, but then Liam pointed to a specific section. "Look here," he said. "During the last experiment, the wormhole stayed open for 3 whole seconds before collapsing. That's longer than we've ever managed before." Rachel studied the data carefully. Her heart began to race. 3 seconds might not sound like much, but in the world of wormhole research, it was a monumental achievement. It meant they were getting closer to stabilizing the tunnel long enough for a ship to pass through safely. "This is incredible," Rachel said finally, sitting back in her chair. "But we need to replicate it. Once isn't enough. We have to prove it can be done consistently." Over the next few weeks, the team worked around the clock, tweaking the equipment and running simulations. Each test brought them a little closer to their goal. Slowly but surely, the wormhole became more stable, lasting longer each time. By the end of the month, they had managed to keep it open for nearly 10 seconds, a record-breaking accomplishment. News of their progress spread quickly. Soon, government officials, scientists, and even ordinary citizens were talking about Project Aurora. For the first time in years, people dared to hope that humanity could reconnect with its lost colonies. But not everyone was convinced. Some argued that the risks were too great. What if the wormhole collapsed while a ship was inside? Or worse, what if it created some kind of catastrophic event that endangered both Earth and the colonies? Rachel understood their concerns, but she also knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Every day they delayed meant more suffering for the settlers on planets like Kepler 7X. She attended meetings, gave presentations, and answered endless questions, always making the same argument. We owe it to them to try. Eventually, the decision was made to move forward with a rescue mission. A prototype spacecraft named the Eclipse was selected for the task. It was sleek and fast, designed to withstand the extreme conditions of space travel. The crew consisted of 4 members: Rachel, Liam, and 2 experienced astronauts who had volunteered for the dangerous mission. As preparations continued, excitement grew among the team. They knew they were attempting something no one had ever done before. If they succeeded, it would mark a new chapter in human history. But if they failed, well, none of them liked to think about that possibility. On launch day, millions of people tuned in to watch the event live. Crowds gathered outside the facility, holding signs and cheering loudly. Inside, Rachel stood beside the Eclipse, checking systems one final time. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. As she spoke to the ground control team, "Ready for departure?" she said into her headset. Liam stood nearby, clutching a clipboard. His face was pale, but he smiled when Rachel glanced at him. "You've got this," he whispered. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. With each passing number, the tension in the room grew thicker. Finally, the engines roared to life, and the Eclipse lifted off the ground, climbing higher and higher into the sky. Within minutes, it disappeared into orbit, leaving behind a trail of fire and smoke. Once in space, the real challenge began. The ship approached the artificial wormhole, which glowed faintly against the blackness of the void. To the crew, it looked like a swirling vortex of light and color, beautiful yet terrifying. As they moved closer, reality seemed to warp and twist around them. Colors bled together, and shapes shifted unpredictably. For a brief moment, all communication with Earth was lost. Inside the Eclipse, the crew held their breath. Rachel gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited to see what would happen next. Then, suddenly, the chaos subsided. The ship emerged on the other side, intact and safe. For a moment, no one spoke. They simply stared out the windows at the unfamiliar landscape below. It was barren and red, with jagged mountains stretching toward the horizon. Twin suns hung low, in the sky casting long shadows across the ground. This was Kepler 7X, the colony they had come to save. Rachel let out a shaky laugh. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually did it." Liam grinned, tears streaming down his face. "Now comes the hard part," he replied. The Eclipse descended slowly, its landing lights cutting through the darkness. On the surface, the settlers watched in stunned silence. At first, many thought they were imagining things. After so many years of isolation, the sight of a spaceship descending from the sky seemed too good to be true. But as the ship touched down and the engines powered down, cheers erupted from the crowd. Emma Carter was among those rushing toward the visitors. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached the ship. When the hatch opened and the crew stepped out, she stopped short, overwhelmed by emotion. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope, a tiny flame that refused to be extinguished. Rachel stepped forward, extending a hand. "We're here to help," she said simply. Emma nodded, unable to speak. Behind her, Daniel Harper joined the group, his face filled with disbelief. He shook hands with Rachel and Liam, gratitude shining in his eyes. The arrival of the Eclipse marked the beginning of a new era for Kepler 7X. But everyone knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Repairs needed to be made, supplies distributed, and plans drawn up for the future. Yet for the first time in a long time, the settlers believed that survival was possible. Help had arrived, not a moment too soon. The colony on Kepler 7X was a lonely place. It sat far away from Earth, surrounded by endless fields of red dust and jagged rocks. The air was thin, and the twin suns in the sky burned brightly during the day, but left the nights bitterly cold. Life here was hard, and hope had become a rare thing. For years, the settlers had waited for help to come, but no ships ever arrived. Communication with Earth had stopped long ago, and now they were on their own. Emma Carter stood near the edge of the settlement, staring out at the horizon. Her hands were dirty from fixing one of the broken machines that kept the colony alive. She wiped them on her pants and sighed. Emma was an engineer, or at least she used to be back on Earth. Here, she was just someone trying to keep things running when everything seemed determined to fall apart. Behind her, Daniel Harper walked slowly toward the greenhouse. His face was lined with worry, and his shoulders sagged under the weight of responsibility. Daniel had been a pilot once, flying sleek spacecraft across the skies of Earth. Now, he spent most of his time planting seeds in alien soil and praying they would grow into something edible. He glanced at Emma as he passed, giving her a small nod. They didn't talk much anymore. What was there to say? Both of them knew how bad things were. The colony wasn't large, only about 50 people lived there, but every single one of them felt the pressure of survival. Supplies were running low. The food rations were smaller each week, and the water purifiers were failing faster than anyone could fix them. Strange storms swept through the area more often now, bringing winds so strong they tore apart whatever stood in their way. Even the buildings made from sturdy materials brought from Earth were showing cracks. Emma turned away from the horizon and headed back to the workshop. Inside, tools lay scattered across makeshift tables, and pieces of machinery were piled in every corner. She picked up a wrench and knelt beside a broken generator. This particular generator powered the air filtration system, which was critical for keeping the colony's atmosphere breathable. If it failed completely, they wouldn't last long. As she worked, Emma thought about the early days of the colony. Back then, everyone had been full of optimism. They believed they were pioneers, building a new home for humanity on a distant planet. But over time, reality set in. Earth had promised regular shipments of supplies, but those never came. Communication satellites malfunctioned, cutting off contact entirely. And then, one by one, the settlers began to lose hope. Daniel entered the workshop a short while later. He carried a tray with 2 cups of weak tea and handed one to Emma. "Thanks," she said softly, taking a sip. The tea tasted bitter, but it was warm, and warmth was something precious these days. "You've been at this all morning," Daniel said, nodding toward the generator. "Any luck?" "Not yet," Emma replied, "but I think I can get it working. Again, if I replace the motor coil, we just need to find one." Daniel frowned. "We don't have any spares left." "You know that." "I know," Emma admitted. "I'm hoping maybe we can salvage something from the old rover. It's not like we're using it anymore." Daniel nodded silently. The rover had broken down months ago, and without parts to repair. It had been abandoned outside the settlement. It was a painful reminder of how limited their resources were. They sat together in silence for a moment, sipping their tea. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the walls of the workshop. Emma glanced at Daniel. His eyes were distant, lost in thought. She wondered what he was thinking about. Was he remembering his life before Kepler 7X? Or was he imagining what might happen if they couldn't fix the generator? "What do you think will happen if we run out of air?" Daniel asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Emma hesitated. She didn't want to think about that, let alone talk about it. "We won't," she said firmly. "I'll figure something out." Daniel gave her a skeptical look but didn't argue. Instead, he changed the subject. "Do you ever wonder why Earth forgot about us?" Emma shrugged. "Maybe they couldn't afford to send more ships. Or maybe they decided it wasn't worth." "That's what scares me," Daniel said quietly. "What if they gave up on us?" Emma didn't answer right away. She wanted to tell him that Earth wouldn't abandon them, that someone somewhere still cared about the people stranded on Kepler 7X, but deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Later that evening, after Daniel had gone back to the greenhouse, Emma climbed to the top of the observation tower. It was the tallest structure in the colony, built to monitor the surrounding area for signs of danger. From up here, she could see the entire settlement spread out below her. The domes housing the living quarters glowed faintly in the fading light of the twin suns. Beyond them stretched the barren landscape, empty and unforgiving. Emma leaned against the railing and looked up at the sky. Stars twinkled faintly, barely visible through the haze of dust kicked up by the constant winds. She wondered if anyone on Earth was looking at the same stars right now. Did they even remember that the colony existed? Or had they moved on, leaving the settlers to fend for themselves? As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Emma felt a wave of sadness wash over her. She had always been a fighter, someone who refused to give up no matter how tough things got. But lately, even she was starting to feel the weight of despair pressing down on her. If help ever comes, she whispered to herself, it'll be too late. Unbeknownst to Emma, light years away, humanity was preparing for something extraordinary. On Earth, scientists were working around the clock on a project that could change everything. They called it Project Aurora, and its goal was simple yet mind-boggling: to create a wormhole capable of transporting ships across vast distances instantly. If successful, it could bring salvation to colonies like Kepler 7X and restore hope to those who had almost given up. But for now, Emma didn't know about any of that. All she knew was the cold, harsh reality of life on Kepler 7X. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, she lingered on the observation tower, watching and waiting. For what, she wasn't sure. Maybe for a sign that help was coming, or maybe just for proof that they hadn't been forgotten. The wind howled louder, tugging at her jacket and sending swirls of dust spiraling into the air. Emma tightened her grip on the railing and closed her eyes. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where the colony thrived, where food was plentiful, and where the air was clean and fresh, where laughter replaced the constant hum of anxiety. Then she opened her eyes and sighed. The dream faded as quickly as it had come. Reality was waiting for her below, demanding her attention. There was work to be done, problems to solve, and lives depending on her. Emma took one last look at the stars before turning and heading back down the ladder. Tomorrow would be another difficult day, but she would face it head-on, just like she always did, because giving up wasn't an option, not yet anyway.